you're on the NHS website or Indeed or one of those job sites, and you spot a role that looks like it was made for you, it's full-time, the pay is decent, and it's under an occupation code that is deemed eligible for sponsorship. So you're scrolling down and thinking, well, this could be my chance. But then you get to the bottom and there is that dreaded line that says, this role does not meet eligibility criteria for a certificate of sponsorship. And at this point, your jaw drops, literally, and your brain is racing with questions. Wait, what? Did I not see this right? Or did I misread the rules? I thought this salary was enough. The job is on the immigration salary list. It is eligible for a skilled worker visa or a care worker visa. So why are they saying it does not meet eligibility criteria for a certificate of sponsorship? If this sounds familiar, you are not alone, because there have been many cases where this question has either come up or some people have actually faced this confusion. And today I'm actually going to say something about it in plain English to the best of my knowledge, because when a job says it is not eligible, it doesn't always mean that the job fails the Home Office rules. It can mean one of many things. And by the end of this video, you will understand what those are. And as a reminder, if you're one of the 88% of persons that watch my video and you've not subscribed yet, kindly consider doing that today. That's the only way you can support this channel. And hit the notification bell so you don't miss any video from this channel. Let's get right into today's video. I'll be using a real example for today's video because recently I came across a Band 3 role, a healthcare support worker role on NHS Scotland that nearly messed up with my brain on what I understand about the occupation code 6131. It's a full-time post. For those that may not be aware, full-time post in the NHS is 37 hours for now. It used to be 37.5. It was reduced to 37 and subsequently to be reduced to 36.5 or 36. I'm not too sure of that number. So this post is full-time. The wages are £28,000, which is way higher than the salary threshold to get a health and care worker visa under this occupation code. This job is on the immigration salary list, and the last time I checked, nurses work in the prison. If you remember, just a little throwback, the immigration rules that was recently published on July 22nd of this year says this occupation code 6131 is only eligible for sponsorship where registered nurses role also exists. So if a nurse is not needed in that place, then you cannot employ a nursing assistant. That is what it means. And like I said, the last time I checked, nurses work in the prison. So everything seems to have lined up pretty well. All the boxes have been checked, but still the advert clearly says this post does not meet the criteria or eligibility criteria for a certificate of sponsorship, and then asked applicants to go look at the new immigration rules before applying for the post or something like that. They should go look at the new immigration rules and see other suitable alternatives before applying for the role, something in that category. Very, very confusing. Very confusing, because I was confused myself and I was doubting everything that I thought I knew. I'm like, oh, wait, hold on. Is NHS no longer sponsoring? What is going on here? What is really, really happening? Why are they saying this on a full-time Band 3 role, with all the boxes checked? And then on a second thought, I was like, let me go look at the health and care worker visa once more. I went through everything and the boxes were still checked. There was nothing missing from this post. And then I realized, okay, there are a few possible reasons why this message was placed on this job advert. And we're going to be breaking them down, because this is where most people trip and maybe carry the wrong narrative around saying NHS will not sponsor anymore just because of one job listing that they saw. One reason why you would come across this kind of situation is it is not entirely about the job itself. It is also an employer's choice. So you see, just because a job is eligible for sponsorship under the immigration rules, it does not mean that the employer has to sponsor it. Sponsorship is absolutely voluntary, and the employer decides whether they want to go ahead with this or not. And some simply don't sponsor, mostly because of the cost, admin cost, the cost of paying for immigration fees. There are fees that employers pay when they sponsor a candidate, and some just prefer to hire locally, to avoid all of this cost. And if there is pressure on the system, that's when they can extend their hands a little bit. Number two is internal policies, and this is very common in the NHS. There are some NHS boards or trusts that would decide that, okay, we are not going to hire band 2 or band 4 and below. Will only sponsor band 5 and up. And this is not because the Home Office forbids it. It is just because they have drawn a line for themselves according to the need of the board at the moment. So some will happily sponsor band 3s and up. Others will not. When you see a post like that, know that it could be one of these. And the reason number 3 is what I would call a blanket disclaimer. Sometimes the HR team don't want to drown in overseas applications. So they'll paste in that line to say this role does not meet the requirements for the certificate of sponsorship. And that is their way of saying don't bother applying if you need a certificate of sponsorship, even though technically the role is eligible for sponsorship. And for this disclaimer, one of the things that would make HR not want to get overseas application is the workload on them, in the sense that most jobs that qualify for a certificate of sponsorship, especially in the health and care sector, has always been overloaded with applications. So one job listing will come with thousands and thousands of applications, and meanwhile they only need 1 or 2 persons for the role. So sometimes they've had to close applications earlier than the due date because of too many applications. So the day that the applications opens, you have more than the number that you even want on the application. So they've had to either close, withdraw applications because of too many applications. So this would be one of the reasons why they will just put it there, because they know that if they don't write that, then they'll be overwhelmed with applications, especially if they don't really need an overseas applicant. So why should they not put the disclaimer there and reduce the workload for them as well? That is another way to think about this. So that is where it gets tricky, because when you start seeing things like this post does not meet eligibility criteria for sponsorship, and you're looking at the wording eligibility and you're thinking, oh, why would they say it does not meet eligibility criteria? It is eligible. Technically it is. So you will now be thinking, you have misunderstood the laws because they are using the wording, the word eligibility. In reality, it is just the employer that is making that choice in most of these cases. Now, I am not saying that all the posts that comes out in this kind of scenario follow the same pattern or the same rules or criteria of what I have explained. These are just possible explanations as to why you would see something like this on a post that tick all the boxes for a certificate of sponsorship. Different employers for different reasons. Now, if you're an applicant, if you see a post like this that says it does not meet eligibility criteria and you are considering having a COS, don't bother applying for it. No matter how much they look eligible on paper, they ticked all the boxes. It's at the end of the day, it is the employer's choice if they want to sponsor you or not. So applying for it makes no difference. Just avoid it. Nothing I missed out on the reasons why you could see that kind of message, especially on NHS, is that NHS does not sponsor some roles, as we know, especially band 2s and down, or depending on the salary threshold. Sometimes an employer may just pick up a write-up from a post that was not eligible for sponsorship and paste it directly on the new listing without maybe checking through to see that there is a mistake at the bottom, or some of the write-ups does not fit the listing that is published. So for instance, a bank role, most employers will always write on the bank role so that they don't have too many applications that this role does not meet eligibility criteria for sponsorship. So that same employer would post another listing, maybe that is similar in job description to the bank role, and they just copy everything and just paste it without editing out some of the things that were not supposed to be in the current listing. So that is that. Back to what we were saying, as an applicant I've mentioned that you shouldn't bother applying for roles that clearly states that they will not sponsor you. What you can also do for yourself is always check if an organization is on the list of licensed sponsors on gov.uk. I have said this a lot of times in my channel, so always check that. Even if they don't write there that it's not eligible for sponsorship, or if they do write that we offer certificate of sponsorship, before you go all in, check if they are on the list of licensed sponsors. Thirdly, remember variation. The NHS is not one single employer. There are so many boards on the NHS, so many trusts, all of them having different practices, different policies. So if one says no, another may say yes. All right. So if an NHS trust in England is saying no to band 3, most of the time NHS in England, their wages are always very low. But in Scotland, it is higher. So you cannot put all the NHS boards and trusts under one umbrella. Don't make that mistake. Fourth takeaway is don't lose hope. It may sound discouraging when you see listings such as this, but look on the brighter side. Look for other employers that sponsor and keep applying. Do not lose hope. So the next time you're scrolling through a listing and you see this job do not meet eligibility criteria for sponsorship, don't panic that the immigration rules have simply changed for that one job listing. It is just up to the employer if they want to sponsor or not. And understanding the difference can save you a lot of time and stress. Of course, I am not an immigration lawyer or advisor, but I try to explain these things in plain language so that you can focus on opportunities that are real and stop wasting your time on the ones that are not. Did you find this helpful? If you did, kindly hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe, share with a friend who may need this information, and leave a comment, a question, a remark. I will be reading and I would love to hear what you think. And until I see you in my next video, bye for now.